afternoon, everyone, and welcome to BCSD's Insights, the Learning and Leading podcast. This is where we promote our district initiatives and provide valuable learning opportunities to our staff, parents, and community members.
We're your hosts. I'm Brandon Broughton.
And I'm Ryan Lanigan, and today we have a very special guest joining us. We'd like to welcome Megan Sarkis, the Associate Director of Undergraduate Admissions at SUNY Brockport. She has extensive experience in college admissions, and welcome, Megan.
Thank you both. Thanks, Ryan and Brandon. I'm super excited to be here today and partner with you and the district on this great new initiative.
We are excited to have you here, and can you just give us a little bit of your background and your expertise in this area? As we know, this is definitely an area where our students and families often feel overwhelmed, and it's a very relevant topic, especially at this time of year. So
yeah, absolutely. This is my 25th year in college admissions. I have been in SUNY admissions since 2003. I spent 5 years, 4 to 5 years at University at Buffalo before coming to SUNY Brockport in 2007. And prior to that, I worked in admissions at my alma mater, a private college in Pennsylvania. Nobody goes to college with a career of college admissions in mind. Like many of my colleagues in college admissions, we stumbled upon this career. But like you said, Ryan, this process can be overwhelming. It's exciting. It can be a little intimidating, and I've loved for the last 25 years getting to work alongside students and their families as they embark on this really exciting chapter. I feel lucky that I get to be a part of it with them. And I would say the last part of an introduction and about me, you mentioned the relevance this time of year. It's also relevant for me because I'm a parent of a high school senior. So it's interesting for me being on the other side of the process for the first time in 25 years.
Well, I mean, just from that background, from, private school to large SUNY at UB and here at SUNY Brockport, and even as a parent, I think that your knowledge and background and insight today will be very helpful for our families here in Brockport. So let's start with the basics.
Sure.
What are some of the first steps a student should take when they're thinking about applying to college?
Sure. And I think students come at this process in such different ways. Some have had a clear idea as to what they envisioned for their future from the time they were young children. Others, more commonly, really don't know what they want to do for the next 40 or 50 years of their life. So we work with students who are at all points in the process. But what I would say is don't wait to start the process, whether you're that student who knows exactly what you want or either student who has no idea. In my years of working in college admissions, I've seen the process shift earlier and earlier, not just in a student's senior year, but in their high school career as a whole. So my first piece of advice is to start the process early. And we're so fortunate in this area, Western New York and Rochester, we have so many institutions of higher education within an hour's drive. Oftentimes, particularly for the students who really aren't quite sure what they want to major in, what type of school they want to go to, simply by visiting a couple different types of schools will really get them more focused on what feels right. They can picture themselves at a campus this size, or sometimes more importantly, they visit a school they thought they would love and they can't picture themselves at a large school or whatever it may be. So I advise students, families, sophomore year, junior year, when you're off of school over February break, over spring break, take advantage of the time, make the most of it, visit a couple college campuses, visit a large research institution, visit a medium-sized state institution in a college town, maybe a private school, a large state school, a community college, rural, urban. See what's out there. If you're going on a summer vacation, you're driving to Hilton Head, stop and visit a college or two, just drive around on the way down. It will really help them, hopefully, focus their search a little bit as they identify things that they like, or like I said before, don't like about certain types of colleges. Then they can take to search engines, speak with their school counselor, go to the college board, enter the things they liked, and they'll start getting lists of schools that meet that criteria.
Megan, any tips around those campus visits? Anything you really want to make sure you see or do while you're there?
Yeah, first of all, whenever possible, register online for an official visit. I hear sometimes families say, don't register, just surprise them and see what happens. I'm not sure what you think we're going to be doing, but we want to make the most of your time on our campus. So when you register ahead of time, we can ensure that we have a student tour guide. You'd much rather get a guided tour of campus from an undergraduate student, and they have, of course, obligations of their own. So when we know students are coming, that's when we can pair them with a student tour guide. We also can reach out to you to say, hey, we noticed that you're interested in nursing. Are you interested in visiting the building or meeting with a faculty member? Or you expressed interest in playing a Division III sport. Here's a list of contact information for our coaches. Again, we want to make the most of their time on campus, but absolutely seeing where they're going to sleep, seeing where they're going to eat, experiencing a classroom. Those are the big ones you should hit when you're visiting a college campus. And if you go over the summer, which is common, right? We're off of school, and you like what you see, go back when school's in session.
Makes a lot of sense. When it comes to standardized tests, let's talk a little bit about that. Many schools are going test optional now. How should students approach that part of the process?
That's a great question. Probably the best thing that came out of COVID is that it did force us as higher education institutions to rethink the emphasis that we placed on standardized tests. Because they weren't available for so long, colleges really adopted what we call a holistic application review, where students are reviewed based on not just the quantitative factors of their application, like a standardized test score, but also in combination with the qualitative factors of their application. SUNY has made a decision since COVID that we are test optional. Many private campuses, even before COVID, were going test optional locally in this area. Nazareth has been test optional for years and years. St. John Fisher went test optional RIT, and they've all remained so after COVID. That being said, I still encourage students to at least take a shot at a standardized test, preferably both the SAT and the ACT sometime during the junior year. The two tests are very different. They're structured differently. The subjects that are included are a little bit different. So this student may be stronger at the SAT, but their sibling or their best friend may find that the ACT is better suited to their testing style. So we encourage students to try both in their junior year, particularly if they're not sure exactly where they're going to be applying to, which is common at that point in their high school career. Because you never know, you may find a school in senior year, maybe an institution out of state comes and visits Brockport High School in the counseling office. You go down and meet them, you like what that rep has to say, you go and visit the campus and you love it, and then come to find out they require SATs for admission or for scholarships or for a certain academic program. So taking the test in junior year is important, just to have them in your back pocket in case you need it. If you're not sure whether or not you should submit it to a test optional school, just ask. Ask the college. We are admissions counselors. We are not rejection counselors. We want to partner with you in this process. So I have students all the time ask me, this is what I got on my SAT score. Do you think I should submit it? And I'll give them a very honest answer as to whether or not I think it'll help their application. In general, our rule of thumb is if it helps your application, we will use it. If it doesn't, we just don't use it.
As you talked about the test being the quantitative piece that you're looking at, what you mentioned qualitative.
Yeah.
What are the qualitative pieces that you are looking at when the students really should be focused on to bring forward in their applications?
So colleges base their decisions on many different factors, but most important of which is always going to be the student's high school performance. But it's not just that cumulative GPA, right? We look at the whole transcript and it really tells us a story. Rigor of their coursework. If they've excelled in specific subject areas, it's our hope that they will work towards perhaps an AP section or a dual credit section in that area. So we're first looking at the transcript, which is for the most part quantitative in nature. But then comes kind of the fun part of an application. So I start with the transcript and then I go to their common application or their SUNY application where I get to know a little bit more about them. So we learn what clubs and activities they may be involved in. And I tell students, put everything down, absolutely put everything down. The Common App has evolved a lot, I think, positively in terms of the information they're requesting students include. So, and they've changed to include family responsibilities. Not every student will be a 3-sport athlete or is going to be president of student government or varsity club. Some have significant responsibilities outside and obligations outside of school, whether it's getting younger siblings on and off the bus, helping with grandparents who live with them, working at a family business, working on a family farm. So the Common App includes an area for students to include that information. We love to see if a student has a part-time job. It really shows a great deal of maturity, time management skills, the ability to kind of balance competing priorities. Sometimes I'll hear from students where they say, I don't have a lot of activities, but I'm a gymnast or I'm a dancer. Well, that's on us to recognize that sometimes being a competitive dancer or competitive gymnast is like having a full-time job. So we really like students to include everything that they're doing. Then we look at their essay, which is, for many students, this scary thing that's standing in between them and hitting submit on their application. I always try and tell students, and I know it's easier said than done, think of it as an opportunity rather than an obstacle. It's the only part of the application that's in the first person. So the only time we're hearing directly from them. And we just want to get to know them a little bit better. And then letters of recommendation. We like to see, good rule of thumb is to plan to have 2 to 3 letters of recommendation. The title of that individual does not matter. It's about someone who knows you, knows your character. That's what we want to hear in a letter of recommendation.
Sounds like a pretty broad-based process, and there's a lot of things you can gain points for if you're involved in things and making sure that you take note of that. Yeah. Let's zero in just a little bit on that personal essay.
Yes.
Any tips for what makes a compelling personal essay as part of that application?
Yeah, so this is another thing. It's so interesting after so many years in this industry, seeing trends in essay topics. And I would say the past 5 years or so, even before COVID, I think students think that they have to write about overcoming a significant life event, a tragedy, something like that. There will be students who have overcome something significant, and that has impacted their life inside the classroom, outside of the classroom, and by all means, those students can write about that. If you're fortunate enough to not have had to overcome something like that, you're not at a disadvantage. I can promise you that. The Common Application will give you 7 or so prompts from which to choose. You pick one of them and just stick to the topic. It's 1 at most 2 pages. So just try and stick to the topic. If you're going to write, one of the topics, for example, is write about someone who's been influential in your life. It's a common one that's chosen. The only caveat I would say with that is that we don't want to know a whole heck of a lot about your grandfather. So probably a wonderful person, but make sure you tie it back, and how has your grandfather impacted the way you live your life on a day-to-day basis. Don't tell us, write what you think we want to hear. Do not use ChatGPT, because we can tell the voice of a 17-year-old versus the voice of AI. Have somebody look it over. And if you have an application deadline of November 1st, don't start the essay October 31st. Give yourself a little bit of time so that you can do it on the side, and then copy and paste it into the Common Application that day.
It sounds like you want to play to your strengths, and you have a story to tell, and stick to that story, and don't necessarily try to focus on somebody else's experience.
Right. It's not one-upping or anything like that. We just want to get to know the student a little bit better.
So I heard you talk about letters of recommendations and their role. How can students ensure that they're getting strong ones, that they're getting the right, and I know you said it's not about the title of the person writing the rec, but like, how do we make sure that if I'm a student, I'm going out and I'm securing people who will write that recommendation that could maybe be the difference to getting me into the institution I want to go to?
It's a great question. A couple pieces of advice I would give is waiting until fall of your senior year. While that is common, does kind of put your recommenders in a tough spot, right? Because if they're getting asked by potentially 30 or 40 other students, and then they have the challenging task of writing 30 unique letters in a short amount of time, That's tough. So you can think, this is something that you can think about early, even in your junior year. So I think oftentimes students will ask the teacher of the course in which they've always excelled. And maybe that is the class that relates to their future major. So if you want to major in political science and pre-law, I've always crushed it in social studies, I'm going to ask that teacher to write my letter of recommendation. We already know you've always crushed it in social studies because we see it on the transcript. But what if chemistry, you had to really work hard to get an 80, maybe lower, or something in the low 80s, and you had to do test corrections, take advantage of study hours or meeting with the teacher or a tutor. Perhaps think about asking that teacher, because the teacher can talk about how this wasn't an easy subject area for you, but you employed strategies and worked really hard to overcome the challenges of that class, and you worked really hard for that grade. All of those skills that teacher can talk about are skills that can translate into hopefully being a successful college student, because college coursework is not designed to come easy to students. So if we're able to see, okay, this student is one who's willing to put in the work for a course that didn't come easy to them, we'd love to hear something like that. I remember maybe 10 years ago or so reading an article in the Chronicle of Higher Education from an admissions officer of a selective Ivy League institution, saying that their favorite letter of recommendation they read that year was from the school janitor, because the school janitor talked about how this particular student held the door for his classmates, for teachers, picked up after his classmates, said hello to every staff member, to the janitor, and that was a great letter that resonated that year with that admissions counselor, and it talked about the student's personal character. And it's something to think about when figuring out who to ask. Maybe think outside the box a little bit. At least one should be from a teacher, if not two. And then you could ask perhaps a coach or a boss or a clergy person. I got one letter one time. A student had 16 letters submitted. One was from his mom. She had lovely things to say. I wouldn't recommend that. I would say 3 to 4 letters of substance would be ideal.
That's great.
And it sounds like the soft skills and some of your work habits and work ethic is just as important to highlight as maybe your accomplishments.
Work habits, I think, Brandon, you hit the nail on the head, because again, college is going to be a big transition. So to be able to identify those skills in a student's college application is really helpful for us.
It's going to matter a lot in those first years of college. That makes sense.
So Megan, talk to us about the the cost of college, right?
Yeah.
So we know that it can be really overwhelming to our families, depending on what you're choosing to do, where you're choosing to go, that cost, and really what you might want to do with your future. Some colleges may help you financially with the diploma, but what is your advice for families that are honestly trying to navigate the sticker shock of it?
Sure. Yeah, you're right. It can be really overwhelming. College is a tremendous investment for students and families, for sure. You are investing in your future, of course, but it is a big financial investment as well. The first thing I would say is take advantage of every information night, financial aid, workshop, whatever it may be, through Brockport Central Schools, through the school counseling office, through SUNY. SUNY hosts statewide financial aid days. Doesn't matter if you're interested in a SUNY school or not. You can come to these workshops across the state. We'll provide you with financial literacy, help you fill out your financial aid forms, take advantage of all these free resources to help you through the process. The next thing I would say is never exclude a college from your initial list of interests based on that sticker shock. Ultimately, you never know what it will cost you after a combination of many types of financial aid: merit-based aid, need-based aid, loans, grants, work study. So it's okay to start with a bigger list that may include some institutions that, when you look at that sticker shock, gives you pause, but include them, because when you get to the point of what you're ultimate cost of attendance will be, you may be pleasantly surprised. That being said, I would be remiss if I did not say what a great deal a SUNY education is. I think many people, we're so fortunate again here in New York State, we have so many colleges and universities, but what many people don't realize is SUNY is the largest comprehensive state system in the United States. The only state that has a higher education system comparable to us is California, but we are still larger in terms of number of campuses, academic offerings, student enrollment, and our cost of attendance is extremely low. Coupled with the fact that New York State offers some great scholarship incentives for low to middle income families to incentivize you to attend a SUNY school, we can be a really affordable option for many students. And then I would also mention that don't confuse cost with quality. If a school has a sticker price of $80,000, that doesn't necessarily mean that that student is going to get a superior experience or something better at that school compared to a school that costs $10,000. It's about taking advantage of your time there, getting involved, doing internships, gaining experience, making connections, and just really making the most of your time there. And then I would also say that when it comes to scholarships, there are a lot of academic scholarships available at both public and private schools. You may get a scholarship that's worth a lot of money, but make sure you're comparing it to the total cost of that institution. SUNY, we do offer academic scholarships. The dollar amount may not be as high as some of our private institution counterparts, but when you compare the dollar amount to our low cost of attendance, they're a great deal.
It's a good ratio when you look at it that way. Yeah, you're preaching to the choir, 2 SUNY graduates here, so we definitely appreciate that. But let's talk a little bit about the myths that sometimes come up between public versus private colleges. Can you debunk a little bit of just kind of some of what we hear as big differences between those two?
Yeah, first would be the one that I mentioned just a minute ago, not confusing cost with quality. SUNY, as I mentioned, largest comprehensive state system in the U.S. We have 64 campuses. There's truly a SUNY campus for everyone. I think a common myth is that any state school you go to, you're going to be in a classroom of 400 students. That is definitely what I thought growing up. I grew up right next to University at Buffalo. I knew it was a big school. One of my siblings was a graduate. My dad was a graduate. They talked of some larger classes, so I assumed every class was a lecture hall of 400 students. I ended up working there. Average class size was 35 students when I worked there. So not that much bigger than a large high school class. At SUNY Brockport, our average class size is 22 students. So you can still get personal attention, a really great experience where you get to know your faculty members really well, even if it's a larger public institution. I would also say that a myth is that state schools are less selective or competitive than private institutions. Also not the case, particularly here in the Northeast. Some of the most prestigious institutions in the country and in this area are public institutions, state institutions. So of course within SUNY, probably most notably SUNY Binghamton is a selective institution, wonderful opportunities for students. They have amazing placement rates into medical school, law school, dental school. Their graduation rates are top-notch, tremendous opportunities for students. But when you think outside of New York, some of the state schools around here, Penn State, Ohio State, Miami University of Ohio, Michigan, all state schools, wonderful reputations, a little more selective in terms of admission. So state school doesn't mean open admission, but we do have state schools that offer open enrollment, and that's a great fit for many students as well. It doesn't matter if you're the valedictorian or you need a fresh start after high school. There really is a SUNY school for everyone.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Just kind of piggybacking off that, so a lot of times we hear a lot now about like a 2+2 program, or you start here. I mean, even in high schools, here in Brockport, we have an early college high school that's partnering with Monroe Community College and SUNY Brockport. What does that piece look like?
Sure.
So the student may have a long-term goal of I really want to go to SUNY Brockport, but for whatever reason, costs, grades, whatever those factors may be, what information can you just share with us around those type of models and the long term game that students should be thinking about for their future?
Yeah, absolutely. We're Monroe Community College, Genesee Community College, Finger Lakes Community College, all within 20 minutes to an hour's drive of Western Monroe County. Wonderful schools. There are roughly 30 community colleges in New York State, and students can go there for a 2-year degree. That's probably half their population, and the other half are students who want to go on further for a bachelor's degree and beyond, but they do want to start at a community college. What's great is that the courses are designed to transfer, not just to 4-year SUNY schools, but private institutions, in-state, out-of-state, etc. So the ease of transferability is great. Students go there with no idea what they want to major in, or they know exactly what they want to major in and where they want to go after their 2 years at a community college, and then everyone in between. Even if you go there with no idea what you want to major in, but you have a goal of a bachelor's degree, your advisor at the community college works with you regarding your goal. And they say, okay, you want to end up at SUNY Brockport, or you want to end up at Stony Brook University or Binghamton. These are the courses that you need to take while you're here that are going to seamlessly move on to that 4-year school. If you go to a community college and I want to end up at SUNY Brockport for social work, I want to go to SUNY Geneseo for pre-med and bio, then they can get you into the prerequisites at that community college so that you're making the most of your time there and you're paying less than half of what you would pay at the 4-year institution. MCC, which is the big community college locally, they have graduates go on to any institution you can think of. They do send students to SUNY Brockport more than any other institution. We get the market share, but they will have students go on to the Penn States that we talked about, Georgetown, across the country, overseas. And students go there, like you said, Ryan, for a lot of different reasons. You're going to save a tremendous amount of money. The courses that you take there, for the most part, are the same courses you would take your first year or first 2 years at the 4-year school. Sometimes students aren't admissible right out of the gate into their 4-year school of choice. So once you spend a year at a community college, that's all the 4-year school is going to look at when evaluating you for admission. Doesn't matter what you got in Algebra 2 when you were in high school or SAT scores or anything like that. We base our decision just on that year at a community college, because once you can prove that you can be successful there, that translates into success at the 4-year school.
That's interesting and good probably for our students to know that. Yeah.
It's a great option.
It's very helpful. So I know you talked about starting early, even going into your junior year, maybe even when you really walk, from your 8th to 9th grade transition, for students, families really knowing what the end game is and where to go. But we all know senior year goes by really fast. What are some tips you might have for students to stay on track during a hectic senior year and maybe avoid that senioritis we hear so much about?
Yes. So you're exactly right. Like also I mentioned earlier, the process has kind of creeped earlier and earlier. The main driver for that earlier start in senior year is SUNY free application weeks. So this is something SUNY instituted 3 weeks ago, where for 2 weeks every October, students can apply to up to 5 SUNY schools free of charge. Traditionally, it's been $50 a school, but that 2-week period, they can apply to up to 5 SUNY schools for free. It's early. October is, you're not in school that long when October rolls around. So that has really jump-started the students getting their applications in earlier and earlier.
Probably helps both sides. It's also good for the college to know the information early.
We've benefited tremendously from that, because students who otherwise would not have applied to a SUNY school or not have applied to SUNY Brockport have now applied because it's free. They got our great scholarship package, and they ended up with us. So I recommend that they try and visit schools before senior year in hopes that that larger list of schools they're interested in gets whittled down a little bit, so that when they go to apply, they're applying to like a focus group of schools. They wait for those decisions, go back and visit when school is in session, when you've been accepted. Sometimes colleges and universities will offer different types of visits once a student has been accepted. Take advantage of those, whether it's an overnight visit, sitting in on a class, that kind of thing. Make sure you're getting your financial aid application in early. I would recommend by Thanksgiving of the student's senior year, because the processing of that can take some time. You want to get those aid packages in hand early in the new year of your senior year so you can really make an informed decision. Maybe it's going back for a second or a third visit. Because again, it's a big decision. It's a big investment. Don't make it hastily. I just registered for an accepted student day today for my son at one of the schools. We've already visited once, but I want us to go back in the winter because it's a little different than it was in July. Go back, visit again. Don't feel pressure to make a decision before May 1st, even if your peers are. But May 1st is really when you should have a decision in by. Yeah.
Well, Megan, you've proven to be an excellent interview, but we know that the two parts I think that stress our students out the most are the essays and the interviews. So can you talk a little bit about the interview process and what that plays in the missions, and how can students prepare for that? Because a lot of times that's one of their first major interviews.
Yeah, great question. Like I said earlier, we're admissions counselors. We're not rejection counselors. So we look for every reason to admit students. And an interview is beneficial for both parties, right? The institution and the student and their family. And also, it can be used in various forms when it comes to evaluating a student's application. So when setting up a campus visit, you want to make sure you're aware of what the format is. Is it an interview? And if it is an interview, is it simply informational for myself and my family to ask questions and the admissions counselor to answer them? Or is it evaluative? So is it something that the admissions counselor is going to take notes and it's going to become part of my application record? So make sure you're asking those questions as you're setting up the campus visit. And a lot of times it might be a parent setting up the campus visit, which we expect. So have the parent ask those questions. And if it's evaluative and it's a 4-hour drive away at 11 a.m. on a Saturday, maybe don't sleep the whole way and show up at 11 groggy, not prepared to talk about yourself. We recommend students come with some questions handy. This is a family decision, and we recognize that, right? So parents are going to have questions of their own, and we welcome those, but we do want the student to be engaged during the interview, even if it's simply an informational interview for their benefit. We may say, oh, what are you interested in studying? And if you don't know, that's okay. Don't be shy in saying that, because then it gives us an opportunity to talk about all the support services that we offer students who are exploring different majors and careers. So be prepared to talk about yourself a little bit. Be prepared with some questions. And advice I would give to parents is that you're a partner in this process, but you're not leading the process. That is challenging for some, myself included. But it's going to be ultimately the student's experience once they're at the school. So a parent may love a campus visit and the student might not, or vice versa. So when you leave that campus and you're heading to your car and you get in the car and drive off campus, maybe as a parent, don't say anything. Let the student reflect on their experience, and maybe half hour into the ride say, well, what did you think? You know, even if you feel a certain kind of way as a parent, let them have their opinion and the ability to say, yeah, that is I did like it here a lot, or I can't picture myself here. And if it's somewhere as a parent you thought they would end up, that's maybe tough, but you got to let them kind of follow their gut a little bit.
Yeah, worst thing you can do probably is push towards a decision that isn't theirs.
Right.
Then, you know, the investment's not there. It's an overwhelming process. We know it can be very difficult. Can you just speak a little bit to advice you'd have for students who are feeling a little bit overwhelmed in the process or are finding it to be quite stressful?
You have some great resources available to you. The school counseling office, you know, they are experts. They have great relationships with college reps, not just from local colleges, but, you know, from many institutions. So pick their brains. I would also say try and come up with some kind of organizational system. So even for students who are not organized, which I do understand, I had my son do this, and I always tell students, set up an email address that you're just going to use for college applications, if you register for the SAT or the ACT. So something that is strictly for that. And then check it. Check the email. We communicate a lot via email. And sometimes schools exclusively communicate via email, even with admissions decisions. So set up that separate email account. Make sure you're checking it. parents can have access to it too. It's nice, but the student should be the one checking it and following up with institutions if they need something. But that will help them kind of remain organized, because if they're not already, they're going to get bombarded with emails from schools they've never heard of. That happens. So using something separate for the schools they're really interested will help them. And utilize the admissions counselors. So oftentimes colleges and universities will come to Brockport High School and they'll meet with interested students. Almost in all cases, the representative from the institution who's visiting the school will be the one who's going to review their application. So take advantage of the chance just to meet that college rep and put a face to the name. We like to do that. It helps us really have the student be more than just their application. When we've met them, we remember them, and sometimes we can be your biggest ally and advocate in the process. If a student is on the borderline of admissibility or for scholarship purposes, and I remember meeting them, they introduced themselves, and maybe they even sent me an email afterwards, we can advocate for the student. So, take advantage of the resources. Try and stay as organized as possible. If you are not interested at all in a school that is pursuing you, simply kindly let them know. It'll maybe become a little less overwhelming when you're not getting bombarded with emails and mail from those schools.
Yeah, a lot to keep straight. So if you know you're thinking yes or no, it probably just narrows it for you and helps you to stay focused on the important ones.
Too. Yep. Yeah, for sure.
Makes a lot of sense. Well, Megan, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been great, and your insights have been wonderful, and we appreciate you sharing all of your expertise in this area. It's been great.
This is so helpful as a parent, as parents ourselves of kids who are not to that point where your kid is, and our families right now, that this is probably most beneficial. Just getting this in advance, even in our roles, I think would be extremely helpful. So
Good,
your
I'm glad.
today was wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you.
To all of our listeners, thank you for tuning in to BCSD Insights, the Learning and Leading podcast. We'd like to thank Megan Sarkis from SUNY Brockport joining us today. And moving forward in the future, if you watch this and you like this and you have topics you want to hear more about for the Brockport Central School District, let us know.
Until next time, happy college planning.
Thanks, everybody.